Hello everyone, this is Raven, and welcome to Raven Coding. Today I wanted to talk about gaming on Linux. Gaming on Linux is quite the hot topic lately because Windows 11 has very steep system requirements that Microsoft recently announced and revised that say that if your computer is more than a couple of years old, it's considered obsolete by Microsoft. They have even told us that we need to buy a new computer. Yes, we need to buy a new computer if our computer is more than 2 years old. How many of us have a computer that's more than 2 years old? Chances are, over 90% of people that own a computer own one that is older than 2 years. So, what is Microsoft trying to do here? We can pretend this is about security and all that, but let's just see it for what it is. They're trying to push PC sales, as they always have. If it's about security, then why is it that Linux has been able to make secure operating systems for decades, but Microsoft needs to implement these hardware features? Yeah, they're good hardware features. Yeah, they do make things more secure. But do we really need to say that everyone's computers are trash if they're more than 2 years old? There are some extremely capable gaming machines that are i7s, that are 7th generation Intels, or 6th generation Intels, that are extremely fast, multi-core, multi-threaded processors. There are the Ryzen 1st generation CPUs. But Microsoft says no, in the next 3 years, those won't be supported even by Windows 10. They're just garbage. Now, this is just ridiculous. The computer I'm going to show you today is 10 years old, but it is very capable of gaming on low to medium settings, not just using Windows 10, but using Linux, using Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is one of the different distributions or brands of Linux, and that's the one I chose because it is the most mainstream one. A lot of YouTubers out there have chosen more exotic ones that are a lot more difficult to install, but I chose Ubuntu because I wanted to make a video to show people how easy it is to game on Linux with older hardware. Because I think that's really where there's a niche that needs to be filled. Once all these computers are no longer supported by Microsoft, we still have an operating system that makes it so they can be used for years and years to come, which is great for the environment to continue to put these things to use instead of just wasting these resources, especially in times like these when there's a silicone shortage. So, I've noticed a trend that most YouTubers out there that have reviewed gaming on Linux have very expensive, high-end gaming machines, or they have old crappy machines that really shouldn't be used for gaming anyway, so it's kind of polarized. So I want to present, if you have an older but capable gaming machine, like this MSI GT60 laptop I have, then gaming on Linux is a great alternative. It's good to switch over, so you'll continue to have a modern operating system, and you won't have to add it to landfill. Now, what are the specs to this computer? This is an MSI GT60. It has an i7 3rd gen quad-core 8-thread CPU that turbos up to about 3.2 GHz, which for a laptop of this age is quite good, and it's still very usable today. It's a very capable processor still. And it is even faster than a lot of those processors that Windows 11 supports, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. And it has 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is, Windows 11 requires 4. It has a 500 gigabyte SSD and a 1 terabyte hard drive. So when it comes to the specs, the actual things Windows 11 requires as far as system resources, this computer, even though it's 10 years old, far exceeds them. But it can't run it, which is just... anyway, So how did I install Linux? I just went to Ubuntu's website. It's pretty easy to do. You just search for Ubuntu or type in ubuntu.com. And then you just go, well, if you don't already have Ubuntu installed, it just takes you to the download link where you can download it. I already have it installed, but you just click on download, you download the image, install it to a USB drive, you plug it in, you boot it up, and it installs. You just click next. It's easier to install than Windows is. And when it loads, it looks like this. You create a login, you log in, it's very easy, and it's way faster than Windows as far as installation, and it runs faster, loads faster. Overall, it's pretty stable and nice. Now, when I installed Windows 10 on this computer, there was so many drivers I had to install. I had to go to the manufacturer's websites, and I had to download the drivers for the Bluetooth. I had to download the drivers for the Wi-Fi. I had to download the drivers for the motherboard and the Intel drivers. I had to download the drivers for the SD card reader. And, like, seriously, none of that stuff worked out of the box. Even after running, like, the thing where Windows supposedly detects the drivers, half that stuff still didn't work. But I install Linux on it, and everything works out of the box. This is Ubuntu 20.04, so it's the latest long-term support version of Ubuntu. So everything works out of the box. The only driver I had to install to game on it was the Nvidia driver. Now, it comes with a graphics card driver that's open source, that's free, but for legal reasons, Ubuntu can't package the Nvidia driver in there. They can provide a link to it where you can download it and install it. And otherwise, it's just using this generic one. So the very first thing you need to do, if you have an Nvidia graphics card, is to set up the Nvidia drivers. And it's super easy. So this down here is like the start menu. You just click on that in the lower right-hand corner, and just type in driver, and then click on additional drivers. So it's super easy to search for things and find them. And then once that loads up, it's going to show all the things that have optional drivers you can install. Now, by default, it has this one down here, using x.org.x server, the Noveo driver. So this is the default open source one that they package with it. But all you need to do, this is literally all you need to do to install the driver, is click on the latest NVIDIA driver, 471 here, click Apply Changes, and then it installs it. It's that easy. This is so much easier than it is to install the driver on Windows, and I don't know why. I have no idea why people act like installing drivers on Linux is a nightmare. Sometimes it can be, depending if you have like new cutting-edge hardware, it can be. But for the older hardware that's more than like a couple years old, Linux just works most of the time. Now, it might not be the very first option. In this case, it is, and it probably is. So you're probably good if you just click on that and click Apply Changes. But if you want to know for sure what the right driver is, then you can open up the terminal by typing terminal here and clicking on it, or you can just press Ctrl-Alt-T to open up a terminal. And then all you need to do to double check to make sure that's the right driver is type Ubuntu -drivers devices. Now, a lot of people get scared about the terminal because they're not used to doing things in the terminal in Windows. But don't think of the terminal as something you have to do. It's something that helps you double check things, it helps you manage resources, it makes things easier, and you can pretty much Google anything and find out how to do it through the terminal. So it's not something you had to do. Like I said, I don't have to do this. I could just click on this and see if it works. If that doesn't work, go to the next one down, see if that works. But in this case, you just type in this command and it tells you right here which driver is recommended. So it says the Nvidia driver 470 distro, non-free recommended. And non-free just means they can't sell it with the operating system. They can't package it with the operating system, but it doesn't actually cost you anything. Nvidia doesn't charge anything for it. So you just click on that, apply changes, and click on close. So I didn't even need to do anything in the terminal. I'm just showing you how to double check if you want to. Now the next thing is installing Steam. And to install Steam, you just go to the Ubuntu Software Center. You can also install any program through the terminal too, but you don't have to do that. The Ubuntu Software Center is actually thousands of times better than the Windows Software Center, where pretty much everything on there is broken or you can't find what you want. You have to download it specifically from their website. Well, in Ubuntu, you just click on the Ubuntu Software Center and type in what you want, and a lot of the time it's there. You can see there's OBS here, so to install OBS, I just type in OBS, click on it, and it installs and it works. After you install the Nvidia driver, the thing you need to do before you install Steam, you don't even need to do this, but it helps, is type Nvidia and install the X server settings. And it doesn't have very good reviews because a lot of people try using it with generic driver and it doesn't work with that. But it works fine with the right Nvidia drivers. So you click on this, it lets you adjust your resolution and all your graphics card settings. You don't really need to mess with this, but it's handy if you want to. Okay, and you can install OBS for recording and streaming and all that. I'm using it to record this video on right now. But to install Steam, all you do is you type Steam. And there it is, Steam installer. It's already installed, but you just click on it, and then you click install. It says remove, because I already installed it. And then, literally all you do is you open up Steam, you install your games. If they're native Linux games, they run, and a lot of Steam's games have native Linux support, and most of them just work. Like, better or as well as they do in Windows. Now, if they are Windows-only games, that doesn't mean you can't run them. And Steam has this thing called Proton now that you can enable, and you can run pretty much, well, any Windows game I have tried has actually worked. So you just go to Steam, Settings, Steam Play, and then you click on Enable Steam for all other, Enable Steam Play for all other titles. And you can select which Proton you want to apply. I have Proton Experimental right now. The different versions, and if Proton Experimental doesn't work for one, you can tell the game to run with just that version. I'll show you how to do that. And then you just click on OK, and you restart Steam, and it installs Proton. And then you can run most Windows games. I'd say over 90% of games you could probably run. All the games I've tried work. So, I just bought the game Bright Memory Infinite. It's a super fun game. This is the only one I had to do one thing to get to work. Everything else just worked fine. It just ran just like I was running it on Windows, or at least as good. So for this one, I tried running it. It started, and then it just kind of gave me a white screen and played the music, but wouldn't actually play the game. But I went to right-clicked on it, went to Properties, and then I went to Compatibility, and under Compatibility, all you need to do is click Force the use of a specific Steam Play compatibility tool, and you select which version of Proton it can run on. So I selected 5.01 because I read in the Steam reviews for this game that this is the one that it works on. And I just selected that. and it works fine. I haven't seen any issues with playing this game. Like, it runs just like it would on Windows. In fact, this game runs extremely well on this computer, which surprised me. I did have to set the resolution down to 720p, which makes sense because it's only 3GB card, so this requires at least a 4GB GT60 for the minimum requirements. So I'm running a game that doesn't even meet this computer doesn't even meet the minimum requirements to run this game, yet it runs fine. And it looks really good, even though it's on 720p resolution, because the graphics are just very well done in that game. So I'm not going to play any of these games because I don't think it's going to record very well while streaming, while playing the game, because, like I said, it's an older computer. But when I'm not recording, it works great. And that's all I had to do. I didn't have to use the command line ever, but you can use it just to double check to make sure you're installing the right drivers. And yeah, it was easy. It was super easy. So, is there any reason to buy a new computer just because you can't get Windows 11 and you're a gamer? No. If you have an older computer that doesn't work with Windows 11, my advice is switch to Ubuntu. Now, there are a lot of other distros out there that people say are way better for gaming, but I can guarantee you have a 99% chance of running into issues, and they'll be more complicated to install and set up. Like, how could it be easier than this? This is easier than Windows. Like, literally, this took me way less time to set up in Ubuntu version 20.04 than it did in Windows 10. So I think it's a no-brainer to use Ubuntu. If you're new to Linux, don't use other distros. Use Ubuntu. It has the most support. It just works out of the box for the most part. Like, there are exceptions. Like, it might not work as well on your computer, but I mean, I had a great experience on this one. Everything just works. There is one thing that I wanted to mention, though, that was a bit of an issue that really is, I don't even think it's related. Oops, I don't want to cancel that. I don't think it's related at all to Linux or gaming on Linux. I think it's more of a Steam thing, and that's that if you're copying your Windows programs over from a Windows drive, and it's not the main drive, then I had problems running the Windows programs if they weren't installed on my main drive. So I had to move those over to my main drive just by going to Steam and Settings, and then I went to Downloads, click on Steam Library Folders, and then here I just had to click on the ones that were Windows only, like this. Then when you click on them, then you can click on Move, and then it just moves them to the main drive. Then I just restarted Steam and they worked fine. Now, had I installed them directly on this other drive, they would have been fine, but I think it's the fact that I was just trying to run them after they'd been installed on Windows, and then I still had that drive. So just moving them over, it fixes that and they just run. But again, I think that's more of a Steam issue, not really anything to do with Linux. Now, there are tons of games that they just run on Steam native, like all the Tomb Raider games run natively on Steam. All the Borderlands games, except for the third one, run natively on Steam. BioShock Infinite runs natively on Steam. So I got Fallout 4 to run, Skyrim runs fine. The only note about Skyrim is I have no idea how to get mods to work. But, you know, that's something I had to learn how to do in Windows too, so I'm sure you can get it to work. I just don't know how yet. And yeah, there are tons of games that run natively, and if they don't, Proton lets you run them. It's super easy. don't be discouraged if you have an old computer and Microsoft says, nope, that belongs in a landfill, you can't upgrade. It's super easy. Barely an inconvenience to just erase Windows, install Linux. In fact, you don't even need to erase Windows. You can dual boot to test it out. You can even boot it off of a thumb drive, of a USB drive, to test it out. Like, it's a live boot thing. So you just plug in the USB drive. You can test it out. You can even install games on it, and test it out from there. You don't even need to install it on your computer. Of course, if you install it, it works 1,000 times better, and it's way easier. So I advise you do that. So, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. Voice your opinion about gaming on Linux in the comments section below. But I really believe that this is where gaming on Linux has its niche, in those computers that won't be supported by Windows 11, that are still very capable gaming machines, like this 10-year-old laptop. It's great. I love it, and I plan on using it for years to come until it dies. And when it dies, I'll probably fix it and continue to use it. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Have a wonderful day.